All right, so quickly, Coordinape is a platform where essentially contributors can to DAOs can pay each other. We were born at Yearn, and the problem that was being experienced at Yearn was that there were all these contributors, showing up and doing lots of great stuff, from translating documents or contributing code or moderating Discord, etc. And there was this committee that was sort of trying to assign them one-off grants on a case-by-case basis. And they were like, how do we compare these apples to oranges comparisons? And also, why are we the committee, right? Like, who decided we're the ones subjectively doing this? And so why not make the whole community that? So we built it there, and it's kind of grown organically since then. What you're looking at here is the basic unit of organization of Coordinape, which is into circles, right? So circles are essentially a group of people and then the budget that they're trying to allocate. So as a user, when you come in here, you would see the circles that you're a part of. And now you click on that circle, and the way that it works is essentially you let people know what is it you've been working on during this epoch. And let's see, I'm going to do a different test circle here. So you're going to tell people, what have I been working on, right? So I might say that I've been onboarding new users, and spell 2 words wrong. And then I'm going to, and obviously you can go, much more in depth with this. People have all sorts of different ways of doing this. And of course, on our roadmap is building out this feature set to have, clickable interface with different project codes, etc. But right now it's just an open-ended field. And then opt-in or out is for community circles where there may be people who are getting paid in other ways, or being compensated somehow, and they say, I don't want to be eligible. I'm already paid. I just want to allocate to folks but not receive. So you can opt in or out. Save those settings, and then oh, I've got the other wrong circle. Let's try this one. So then I'm going to go to select team. And this is where, there's a lot of different contributors potentially in your circle, but you're just going to choose those ones whose value you can directly speak to, or you can say, like, yes, I know what this person has contributed. I've seen their work has helped me somehow. And so, it's fundamentally subjective, and Coordinape has chosen to kind of lean into that subjectivity. And so you're going to put all those people on your team, and then we're going to go to allocate give. And this is where you start with 100 give, and then you can give to people according to, again, how you experience the value that they contributed, right? And so the way that this works is, you may have some budget of stablecoin, of native token, whatever it is that you're allocating. The total number of give proportionally represents that budget. So essentially, whenever you give, you're giving some percentage of an overall budget of some token. And the other important thing to note here is leaving notes. So we really want to make sure that people actually feel seen and appreciated, right? And so we let them know, exactly what they've been doing that we thought was so great. And these can be, much more detailed notes, but leaving them something, we've seen really increases user adoption and engagement. So I'm going to give until all of my give is allocated, and then save that. And then we have this map that shows, and I'll actually show you a live map from Yearn, from the community, so that it's a bit of a better representation of what this all looks like. So I can look at any contributor, and I can see all of the people that they gave to, which is the orange lines, and then the green lines flowing in are all the people that gave to them. And so this map view does a couple things. One, it deters collusion, although we haven't seen that really be an issue. It does help people to know that what they're doing is going to be transparent to folks. But also it really serves as a useful sort of sense-making map of the DAO, right? I can click on different people and understand kind of what is it that they're working on. Who are they working with? You know, if I know, for example, that Dudeson is a core contributor and they're giving to Farah May, I can click on Farah May and say like, oh, wow, she's doing, or they are doing quite a bit, you know, getting a lot of give. And so then I can click on their profile feature to better understand, you know, what is it that they're working on. I can go find them in the Discord or Telegram, understand better, you know, what are they working on? Is there some way that I can get, that I can add value to it? So it's sort of, this becomes over time a way for the DAO to sort of self-reflect and understand what is it that we actually think is valuable. You know, when we're giving people give for something and saying this work is valuable, what do we as a DAO value? What's important to us? Is this really important? Perhaps Farah was making memes, and the reason that they received so much give is because everyone just saw the memes. But is visibility really what we want to be rewarding value for? So we often say, and people are noticing that the allocation is not nearly as valuable as the conversations that can grow out of allocation. And then finally, also worth noting here that Coordinape itself is a member of every circle, and that is currently, like, that's our model for how folks can get can pay us, right? Coordinape is free, and so we thought we would, you know, our monetization strategy would be using the same principles that we're inviting all these DAO practitioners to use, which is if they feel like it's valuable, you can give us some give, and then we get a proportional share as well. So that's really a basic overview of how it works. Obviously, we have a whole bunch of things on the roadmap. There's other stuff I can share, but I think I'll stop for right now and make some space for some questions so that I'm not just rambling and we can really dive into the stuff y'all are curious about.
I think Livy dropped the first one to the chat. Is the note sent to the person who's receiving?
That's
or
correct.
Is an open data to the whole circle? Yes.
Right. So notes are not public. Notes are directly to folks. We're working on a feature that should be live soon where people can mark if they want their note to be public. So if I send someone a note, I say it's okay for me if it's public. And then if they also check it's okay, it's public, then it's viewable publicly.
But the network map is available to everyone, right? The map.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Although another feature that is much requested and that we're creating is the ability to turn on or off the when people see it. So right now the map updates in real time. So before my allocations, I might just, you know, I might look at the map, for example, and say, oh, I see that XYZ person hasn't received any give yet. You know, I'm going to give them more than I would have because I want them to really be acknowledged. Some DAOs might want that kind of dynamic, and other folks might instead say like, no, we want everyone to really ascribe where they see the value being added, and then the map is only visible at the end. So we're going to add that option to where people can say the map is only visible at the end of allocations.
I see. Peter has also a question. Do you want to switch on your mic?
Yeah, sure. So my question is, when Coordinape is rolled out in a community for the first time, have you seen any contribution trends change or shift in behavior in the DAOs that's notable?
I would say all of those shifts so far are primarily anecdotal. We don't have any, you know, data to share about, you know, engagement or contribution or stuff has gone up. I mean, part of that is because we're so new and there's very few DAOs that have more than a few epochs under their belt. I will say that the anecdotal data is we've definitely seen more of a doer mentality. You know, it's easier to jump in and contribute if you know there's X budget allocated for the community. Certainly at Yearn, we've seen the community circle turn into more of a funnel for contributors coming in. And that's one of the ultimate kind of hopes as we zoom out, is that Coordinape could help sort of eliminate this hiring decision. Should we bring someone on? They can just come and start working and get allocated to and compensated immediately. And the more they get allocated to and compensated to, if you see someone showing up in the contributor circle week after week, month after month, whatever, you might say, hey, like there might be a lot more stuff for them to do. Let's bring them in, come to the next layer of the DAO. So it becomes kind of a cool recruitment platform in that sense.
Mm-hmm. There's another question from Grace in the YouTube chat. Is that so? She's referring, I guess, to the last network graph you've shown us. Is that just the visualization, or is it really accurate that give is flowing towards only a few people in this case? It's maybe the highlighting. I don't know.
Yeah, it's when you click on each person, you see where the give and is flowing in and out. So of course, some people are going to receive more and some less. That's how it should be. But that's the actual real-time detail of the results of the allocations.
There's another one. Is there a way that roles could refine the metric of your distribution graph? So I guess at the moment you don't have roles or levels. So everybody's on an equal starting point at the beginning of an epoch.
That's correct. So no, the default is that every single contributor gets 100 give. Right, that's sort of the default setting. You can customize that and give different contributors higher amounts of give. We're really keen on having, automatic, for example, token weighted. So, how much you hold of a specific token or NFT or whatever will determine how much give you have to allocate. As a sort of feature that you can turn on. And there's also, for our V2, there's all sorts of ideas that we have around different roles and the way that you can actually allocate to roles or to functions within the DAO as opposed to just individuals. True to our roots at Yearn, we are very much still testing in prod with this as we've kind of rolled it out. And so, really learning a lot as DAOs use it about what will be helpful as we sort of undertake the next big iteration of it. But certainly expanding beyond just individual to individual is going to be important.
Ryder, do you want to raise your question yourself?
Sure. Hi, Zach. My question is, how is your business model working to sustain the organization? Is it sufficient? Is it contentious, or is it flowing well?
I would say that it's not sufficient for sure so far, but that's because we've only had it out for a couple weeks. This Coordinape showing up in the circle and that attempt to monetize it. So it's not sufficient yet. Our hope is that it will be. Our hope is actually that so we're going to raise some investment, and we're hoping that investment will give us enough runway over the next X amount of time to where we can just hold all of the native tokens that people contribute, and so eventually we'll have a treasury that's a hyper diversified index of DAOs, essentially all the different DAOs using the project, and we'll have a kind of grab bag of all sorts of native tokens, whatever people are distributing, and that we may be able to leverage that somehow as an actual DAO index product. I'm very much sort of we're thinking out loud on that one. We'll see, but hopefully also the more people that use it and the better the tool gets, the more that we'll have give allocated to us, and there certainly is a potential future where just give allocations from enough DAOs are plenty to sustain the team.
James, you also have a question.
Yeah, I was curious because you mentioned the DAO is an onboarding flow into other circles. And I'm wondering how you optimize your community development overall as like a graph in itself, combining all the circles.
Yeah, I think that's something that we're still working on, thinking about how to visualize. That one you saw for the yearn community is most of the yearn community is part of that big graph, but there are smaller circles, that are just for strategist groups or something like that. I think one of the things that we're really trying to figure out also for V2 is, Give itself is a really crucial reputational marker. If you can imagine someone coming to your DAO and they say, I want to help out, I'm going to start doing stuff, but then you notice, oh, wow, they've received, 5,000 give from 6 different DAOs. You can see prominent folks who they may have received give from. So it becomes a super powerful attestation and reputational metric, essentially. It's like it's all these people have said, this person is valuable and I've paid them. And so being able to carry that around with you, that data is going to be hyper valuable. One of the questions we're trying to figure out is how to make that public, and how people can opt into that using decentralized IDs. So you can sort of carry around that reputation with you as you go to various places on the web. I think it'd be pretty fascinating. You imagine that one graph, being able to spread that out across many DAOs, being able to look at that from an ecosystem perspective. There's almost kind of like a decentralized LinkedIn sort of potentials that we could also explore. And I know, there's lots of projects. I'm sure, I don't know them, but I'm sure there's lots of projects that are working on different things like that and thinking about it. And so, being really composable and not trying to be everything to everyone has been a really valuable learning for Coordinape. There was initially, as we were building it, we saw like 1,000 different directions it could go and things it could do, and really staying focused on just how do people incentivize and reward contribution amongst the DAO has been important, I think, in terms of uptake, because it's a very low lift. People don't have to take on a whole new operating system. They can just kind of plug and play and use it as it's helpful.
Cool.
All right,
Thanks.
there's another question. Aloysius, do you want to raise it yourself? I read it out. Are you guys tracking how long it takes for communities to integrate this tool? First round I experimented with it was about 15 to 20% participation. Have you considered documentation to support people applying new distribution methods in principle? Like bake in your internal processes that have been refined to help with other people's learning curves. So onboarding, how long it takes to integrate it.
We are not tracking how long it takes anybody to integrate this tool. I think there's probably a long list of stuff that we should be tracking and aren't. Data we'd like to collect, but aren't or can't. As I'm sure many people here can relate to, working in Web3, there's always a crunch of bandwidth, of developers, of time, of all the things you want to do and the time there's to do them. So we're certainly super keen on all of that. There's probably no part of the product that couldn't be vastly improved by more time and attention, and certainly onboarding is a big part of that too. But we thought most important was to get it out and available and have a version that people could start playing with, so that we have something to iterate on. So that's really what our focus has been. I think that we're sort of learning right now. We're in our first real cycle of going back to users and getting feedback in some sort of systematic way, so we can start to understand what are the features people most want and then prioritize them to start to build them. We're sort of just getting that done in earnest right now. So onboarding certainly is a big part of that. How do we help communities onboard people into it and understand how it works? I think there's a huge opportunity in sort of the social layer of helping people to debrief and understand, and sort of how do we take people through a process of sense making from the graph, so that they sort of get better at allocating to each other, and how can that be a positive feedback loop for culture. That's something I didn't mention, but one of the things that we're most excited actually about Coordinape is the sort of cultural piece of how it can create a much more sort of positive sum abundance mindset in a DAO, where it's all oriented around giving, and creating this culture of rewarding and thanking, and that's a subtle but really important difference when you think about compensation. There's ways to just really put it into sort of this gifting model, instead of a sort of there's the zero sum that we're all battling for. And that mindset shift, I think, can be really powerful cultural kind of touchstone for DAOs. And so, all the different social layer tools that are possible around these kind of things is something we're also really keen to both explore and especially collaborate on.
Peter has a question on the GIF then being translated to the native token. Peter?
Yeah, I think I get the gist. I can answer that. So right now, the way that Coordinape works, it's actually off chain, the results, and so the actual results are a CSV, that has the name, wallet address, and percentage of give that each person has received, and then they can use Air CSV from Gnosis or Disperse or an app like that to distribute the native token. Our sort of primary thing that we're sprinting on right now is 8 vaults. So integrated into the platform, you'll be able to deposit whatever token it is you're distributing, and that will all happen on Coordinape as part of the platform. And it's exciting. A few of the larger DAOs, that have some treasury management are going to take advantage of our integration with Yearn Vault. So you'll be able to, for example, deposit USDC in an 8 vault and then use the yield to fund the circle. And so you'll essentially be able to just park your principal and then pay folks off of the yield being generated by the vault. Something we're excited about. But right now, you're sort of it's manual, and very soon to be part of the platform.
I wonder, is there any, probably not yet, but is there any verification mechanism you could think of to, at this current status, it would be quite easy to game. So it's basically on the people's own discretion to give, and also, to vice versa, give and take.
You could say in one sense, it's super easy to game. The 3 of us could just send notes to each other and like, hey, let's just give all of our give to each other. We haven't seen that happening, and I think it's for 2 reasons. Primarily, one is the graph, will make it pretty obvious. If people are only giving to each other, you'll be able to see that. Especially if they only just give to each other, they'll be kind of a separate circle removed from everyone else. So it'd be easy to see, and really the opportunity cost of doing that, essentially of burning all of your credibility within the community of getting caught cheating, is really not worth the upside of a slightly greater percentage of whatever budget is being allocated. There aren't that many DAOs that are allocating millions of dollars, or these are not high ticket circles predominantly, and so you may get a few hundred, a few $1,000s more in exchange for kind of losing all of your trust within the community. It's a pretty low low risk return for gaming. And then also, the way that people join a circle, there are 2 ways. You can either be added by an admin, so whoever's setting up the circle adds all the wallet addresses, or there's a vouching mechanism. So, I may have been working with somebody or seen the work that they're doing. It's like, oh, they definitely need to be in Coordinape, and I can nominate them, and then other people vouch for them and say, like, yes, they should come in. And you can set that level of vouching, so you may want to have a circle that's really tight and says, no, every other person in here has to vouch for you before you come in, or over 50% have to vouch. Or it may be really porous and say like, yeah, it's much more free. As long as someone else vouches for you, you can come on it. So that's how people choose. And we're also working right now on a self-nomination. So I may do something and then I may say like, hey, you should let me in the circle because I did this, and you can be vouched in that way. So, the idea that someone would go through the effort of creating multiple identities to try and come in and game and get some more give, it's really hard to get give if you're not actually making a contribution. You may be in the circle, but unless people really see some output of your doing, they're not going to give you anything. So in that sense, it's easy to game, but not very lucrative to game. And so we haven't seen a lot of that happening.
All right, thanks. Ryder has another question. Ryder. Totally.
No, I don't think I do.
All good. Then I'll continue with Mark. Mark, do you want to switch on your mic?
Oh yeah, thank you. I was just my question was more on the qualitative aspect, because it's sort of a monetization, but how do you, which gives a sense that was valued, but it doesn't give a sense as to what degree in building that reputation. So I was just curious on how you can have sort of a 360 feedback on the deliverables that are being given, so that you can also have sort of a multi-dimensional assessment of the quality, reputation, and ability of that individual. Thank you.
So if I understand the question, I think there's a question of within circles, like if someone gives me 10 give and another person gives me 20, it's helpful for me to know on what scale are they allocating, or if I see someone else getting give, it's sort of like, how do we start to have more quantitative understanding of the value of that?
No, it's more the qualitative. So like you're submitting some value to that circle. They give you the give. You can see it in monetized terms. But how would I know, like, a rating system on how good that work was, and how can you see it sort of maybe even over time?
So, I mean, our theory is sort of that the number of give received itself is an indicator of the perceived quality. If someone says like, I made all these videos over this epoch and I didn't get any give, it's like that's likely a representative of how people felt about the actual value being added by the work being done. There's certainly a lot of opportunity, like I said, with expansion of both the, what am I working on, and the notes field that we're exploring, of how can you give more nuanced feedback? How can you, we're working actively on a bounty or ticketing system. So instead of always being retroactive for things that people have done, you can actually give to tasks that you'd like to see done that people populate, and then people can come claim them and do them. So, right now we're really seeing give as kind of a proxy for perception of value and quality. I think over time that will play out, but it's harder to do on sort of the micro epic by epic scale. Presumably if someone keeps showing up and keeps receiving give, that means that they're probably consistently delivering a quality that's appreciated by the community. I think there's definitely interesting issues that crop up. For example, if someone, shows up in a DAO and says, look, I have all these give, but we have no idea by what sort of criteria or standards the other DAO that they were a part of was allocating give, how many people were in it, right? So it's sort of like testimonials on LinkedIn. Like, I have a bunch, but who are they from and what do they mean? And so, that's certainly something we're going to have to crack and figure out as well. But again, there's a lot of issues, I'd say, with leaning into that subjectivity of just, sort of letting the entire community go with its gut. But there's also some real advantages to it too. And so we just decided to kind of take those trade-offs and run with them. The one nice thing about it, and something that's always a design tension, is sort of like the more nuance and functionality you add to the tool, the more work it is to actually use it. and if all of a sudden giving gives starts to feel like a job and homework, and I have to, make micro notes about specifically what did I like, it's just like, never mind. But the way it is now is kind of like, hey, how'd you feel about this person? Like 10. Like, okay, great. And the idea is that with all the imperfections of that, it's also much better than some small group doing that in a kind of black box way. At least I'm getting feedback from the whole community, and also like taking that off of someone's plate to sort of, try and decide what should be allocated to the community. Yeah, so
Right.
it's not perfect, but better is kind of the theory.
I mean, and there's so much room for whatever can be added. I really like the transparency. It obviously, I mean, we'll have praise later on. And Livy also quickly asked, can we see graphs between circles between different communities and relationships? And I think you mentioned, don't know if this exists today, but this is certainly the plan.
It does not exist today. It is the plan once we figure out how to do it, shortly speaking, but a lot of like how people can opt in to having that data be public.
All right. Thanks so much, Zach. This was a great Q&A on Coordinape. Maybe you want to drop us a link to the chat where we can find Coordinape if anyone wants to test it
Sure thing.
for the own community collaboration.
Yep,
And thanks a lot.
Coordinape.com is where you can try out a circle, start it up permissionlessly, and come find us in our Discord for any questions or further conversation, or especially if you're keen to contribute to the project.
Awesome. Thanks
right.
a lot.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for presenting. Cheers. Talk soon.
Cheers.